It's the Martin and Dean Chronicles. Ready for laughs and cheers? One's a geezer, one's a queer. Find out who on the Martin and Dean Chronicles. Tune in, don't delay. Martin and Dean will make your day. Part 2, Out of Our Time. Chapter 7, Croydon to Berlin. Right, we are back. I guess he pulled out his finger and got on with writing. I do have to say, I'm as surprised as you are. Anyway, on with the tale. The pub stinking of sweat, beer and bad decisions. It's packed with rough dock workers, a few soldiers on leave, and old men who look like they've never smiled. As Martin finishes his swing number, Dean wasn't the only person looking pissed off. The pub dies. Not literally, but close. Pints stop mid-air. The bartender stops pouring. A sailor looks like he just saw his mother explode. A huge dock worker with fists like ham shuffles forward, his expression blank.
The fuck was that?
Martin takes a bow. Silence. A knife gets casually stuck into a table. A soldier exhales cigarette smoke like a man deciding if he's about to commit a hate crime.
Jesus fucking Christ, Martin!
A low murmur spreads, words like queer as a clockwork orange and poofter circulate. Dean jumps to his feet, claps loudly, and shoves his way to Martin, slapping a hand on his back like he's just some harmless idiot and not a man seconds away from being curb-stomped.
Well, wasn't that just the treat of the century? You don't see that every day, lads. You know what else you don't see every day? A couple of fine gents, us, buying you all around. Oh, but look at the time, we need to head off.
Dean slams down a load of cash on the bar and looks at the barman.
Get everyone what they want. Sadly, we need to be going.
He yanks Martin toward the door as grumbles turn to real threats. Someone smashes a pint. A chair scrapes aggressively. They bolt. Outside. The pub door swings open behind them and angry shouting spills out. Dean practically shoves Martin into their Ford Anglia, fumbling with his pocket knife like a man about to piss himself in fear. Dean hissing, trying to start the car.
You stupid, suicidal twat. This is the second time I've had to drag your ass out of trouble for being...
Dean glances around, lowers his voice.
Very fucking queer in public.
Martin just grinning.
I was just adding a bit of razzle-dazzle to the day.
Not sure how many times that I should have to tell you. It's 1939, Martin. You can't go waltzing into a pub full of men who've been drinking since Tuesday and start singing like you're auditioning for a fucking Broadway show.
The engine roars to life just as the pub door slams open again. Someone yells, "There they are!" A pint glass shatters on the pavement beside them. Dean floors it.
Oh, come on. I bet at least one of them was tapping his foot.
Tapping his foot, wondering how hard to kick your skull in.
They tear down the road, leaving angry shouts behind them. The headlights cut through the London fog as Croydon Airport looms ahead. Dean swerves into a side street, screeching to a halt. They leap out, leaving the car idling like an abandoned crime scene. They sprint toward the terminal, dodging the occasional bewildered traveller. Behind them, they arrive towards the check-in desk. As they're standing at the crowded check-in desk, a line of passengers behind them impatiently shifting about. Dean, wearing a slightly crumpled suit and a devil-may-care grin, steps up to the counter and leans on it like he owns the place. Martin stands behind him, fiddling with his tie, looking deeply uncomfortable.
All right, love. Me and my pal here need 2 first-class tickets to Berlin. Top priority, life or death situation.
The air hostess barely looking up.
Life or death? So the entire plane is fully booked, let alone first class.
Fully booked, but you've got 2 men of monumental importance standing right in front of you.
I'm sure I do, but unless someone cancels, I can't do anything.
Dean leans in closer, lowering his voice.
Cancel, you say? Can we step out back for a moment, have a quiet word?
The air hostess looks at him skeptically, but is intrigued by his roguish grin. She glances around and reluctantly motions him to follow her. Dean winks at Martin.
Hold tight, Martin. Big D's got this.
Martin stands frozen at the desk as Dean follows the air hostess behind the counter and out of sight. The murmurs of passengers grow louder as they wait. Martin gives an apologetic smile to the person behind him.
He's, sorry, he won't be long.
Meanwhile, in a dimly lit staff hallway, Dean turns on the charm full blast. Dean leaning against the wall.
Look, love, you've got this whole authority vibe going on, and I respect that. But here's the deal. We've got to get on that plane, and I reckon I can make it worth your while.
The air hostess crossing her arms.
And how do you plan on doing that?
Well, I've got a certain reputation for leaving people very satisfied. I'm a geezer, after all. Ha ha ha.
Cut back to Martin, awkwardly standing at the desk, hearing faint laughter and Other noises from the back hallway. Dean then emerges, slightly dishevelled but grinning like a Cheshire cat. Dean pats Martin on the shoulder.
Sorted Martin.
What did you do?
Gave us some persuasive arguments.
The air hostess pulls out a phone and dials the cockpit.
Captain, I've just received word that 2 war heroes need first-class seats to Berlin. Yes, it's urgent. I suggest we remove 2 passengers.
The air hostess then shortly reappears, after several minutes, straightening her uniform and avoiding eye contact with anyone. The captain storms up to the desk moments later, his face stern and commanding.
Where are they?
The air hostess gestures to Dean and Martin.
Right here, Captain.
All right, I'll handle this.
The captain strides toward the gate and whispers to 2 well-dressed passengers in first class. A heated argument ensues and security arrives to escort the couple out.
This is a disgrace. Do you know who I am?
Yeah, and now you know who we are, war heroes.
Martin whispering furiously.
Dean, you said we were war heroes.
Dean shrugging.
Not yet, but it's called thinking ahead, Martin.
The air hostess hands them 2 first-class boarding passes, smiling coyly at Dean. He tips his imaginary hat at her.
You're a star, love, truly.
As they walk toward the gate, Martin grabs Dean by the arm.
This is insane. What happens when they realize we're just 2 blokes with no war stories?
Then we make some up. Don't worry, Martin. I've got enough charm to carry us both.
They board the plane and sink into plush first-class seats. Dean pours himself a glass of champagne while Martin fidgets nervously. Dean raising his glass.
To Berlin, Martin, and to being bloody legends.
Martin shaking his head.
You're going to get us arrested.
Arrested? Nah. Worst case, I'll sweet-talk us out of it. First class, Martin. This is how life's meant to be lived.
The plane takes off as Dean relaxes and Martin clutches his armrest in disbelief. As Dean and Martin are sitting in first class, surrounded by luxury they clearly don't belong in. Dean's shoes are off, he's lounging with a glass of champagne, and his roast duck à l'orange is nearly demolished. Martin sits stiffly beside him, looking like he's waiting for the hammer to drop. Dean sipping champagne.
You see, Martin, this is the bloody life. Champagne, duck, and enough legroom to do a cartwheel if I wanted.
Martin hissing.
Dean, you lied to an entire airport.
Dean waving him off.
Lied? That's harsh. I like to think of it as improvising under pressure.
Martin leaning closer, whispering.
Improvising? You told them we're war heroes. That's not improvising, that's fraud.
Fraud's only illegal if you get caught, Martin.
And what happens if we do get caught?
Dean leaning in, pointing his fork at Martin.
Look, shut the fuck up for a minute, you silly poof. How else are we getting to Germany, eh? You think Einstein's just gonna pop over to Croydon for a pint? No, poof. We're here, we're first class, and we're getting shit done.
Fine. But when this all goes tits up, I'm blaming you.
Fair, just make sure you blame me while sipping champagne and eating duck.
Martin reluctantly picks up his fork and tries the duck. His eyes widen in surprise. Martin starts muttering.
Okay, this is good.
Dean grinning.
Told you, now drink your bubbly and stop looking like you've smuggled a bomb on board. You're making me nervous and you caused enough trouble already today.
As Martin sips his champagne, the captain's voice crackles over the intercom.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I'd like to extend a special thanks to the 2 war heroes flying with us today. Your bravery inspires us all.
The other passengers clap politely. Dean raises his glass in a casual salute. Dean then says to the cabin,
Cheers, everyone. Just doing our bit for king and country.
Martin's face turns red as he sinks lower in his seat. A posh older woman in pearls leans over, her eyes wide with admiration.
Oh, excuse me, gentlemen, I couldn't help but overhear. May I ask what mission you were on?
Martin panicking.
It's classified.
Dean cutting in smoothly.
Classified, love. Very top secret. Let's just say it involved danger, daring, and a couple of blokes who never backed down.
Oh, how thrilling. My son's in the RAF. He'd be so proud of you both.
Dean nodding solemnly.
Brave lads, the RAF, true heroes.
The woman beams at them and returns to her seat. Martin groans, burying his face in his hands. Martin started muttering.
This is insane.
Dean just grinned.
Nah, it's genius. Do you think they'd have let us on board if I'd told them the truth? Oh, hi, we're just 2 blokes who accidentally time-traveled and need to find Einstein before we muck up history. Yeah, that'd go over well.
A stewardess walks by, topping off Dean's champagne. He winks at her as she pours.
Cheers, love, you're a diamond.
Martin glared at Dean.
You're way too calm about this.
Dean leaning closer.
And you're way too bloody loud. Shut it, eat your duck, and let me do my thing.
Martin scowls, but returns to his food as Dean leans back, raising his glass with a cheeky grin.
To Berlin, Einstein, and not getting caught.
Martin mutters under his breath as the plane hums along, Dean looking utterly content in his stolen luxury. Dean and Martin step off the plane onto the tarmac at Berlin's airport. The city buzzes with activity. Dean looks around, stretching his arms, while Martin is tense. Dean grinning.
Ah, Berlin smells like adventure, doesn't it?
Martin frowned.
Smells like trouble. Let's just focus on finding Einstein and getting out of here.
Dean just ignored him.
Speaking of focus, I'm parched. Fancy a pint?
Martin just horrified.
A pint? Dean, you just had champagne on the plane. We're on a mission. We don't have time to...
Dean interrupted.
Listen, Martin, you can't save the world on a dry throat. Einstein will still be a genius in an hour. 1 pint won't hurt.
Martin gritting his teeth.
1 pint, then we find Einstein.
Dean smirked.
That's the spirit. Let's find ourselves a proper German pub.
They stroll into the city and soon find a cosy, dimly lit tavern. The place smells of beer and bratwurst. Dean makes a beeline for the bar while Martin hesitantly follows. Dean slaps a few coins on the counter, ordering 2 beers. They sit at a corner table. Martin sips nervously, scanning the room. Dean downs half his pint in one go, sighing contentedly. Dean leaning back in his chair.
See, nothing like a good pint to take the edge off.
Martin whispered.
We shouldn't be here. This place feels... off.
Dean rolling his eyes.
Everything feels off to you. Relax, have another sip and enjoy yourself.
Dean notices a man sitting alone at the bar. The man looks stressed, clutching a glass of schnapps and muttering to himself. Dean, always unable to resist a fixer-upper, nudges Martin.
Look at that bloke. Poor sod looks like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Martin started feeling nervous.
Dean, let's just stick to ourselves.
Dean, ignoring him, stood up.
Can't let a man stew in misery. I'm going over.
Martin, panicking.
Dean, no.
Dean saunters over to the man and claps a hand on his shoulder.
Evening, mate. You look like you could use a friend and a few more drinks.
The man turns slowly to face Dean. He has a moustache like Charlie Chaplin. He looks startled but intrigued.
Who are you?
Dean grinned.
Name's Dean. Just a bloke who believes life's too short to sit around looking like someone's nicked your wallet. What's bothering you, mate?
The man looked hesitant.
It is complicated, big decisions to make, very big.
Dean nodding sagely.
I hear you, but here's the thing. Life doesn't wait for anyone. You've got a plan? Then stop pussyfooting about and bloody well do it.
The man blinked.
Do it?
Dean slamming his pint down.
Exactly. You've got dreams, yeah, you've got ideas. Then go out there and make 'em happen. No one ever changed the world by sitting in a pub feeling sorry for themselves.
The man stares at Dean, a strange glint in his eye. He raises his glass, toasting.
You are inspiring. To action.
Dean raising his pint.
To action?
Martin watches this exchange from the table, his face pale as a sheet, as he recognizes that Dean is with Hitler, but is too stunned to intervene. The 2 men continue drinking, laughing and chatting late into the night. Join us to continue the adventures by hitting subscribe. If you enjoyed our exploration, give us a like and share your thoughts in the comments below.